should have a fair chance at getting a fair trial in the appeals process and the different things that they go through. Shouldn't that, coming from the other side, from the victim side, shouldn't that also be streamlined? Should a victim's family, if they agree with that decision, have to wait 20, 25 years for that justice to come down? Like, where do you go with that?
Where my mind takes me with that is the war on drugs. And we passed all these laws and decided to impose all these mandatory minimums so that people would be facing far harsher punishments for selling drugs, manufacturing drugs, all these things, and it hasn't really worked, has it? And I think that sort of answers your question of the harsher the punishment does not necessarily mean that the crime won't be committed as often. And in fact, that generally has been a failure in our system.
Do you think it's that? So then again, going back to it, is it necessarily that the punishment? I don't think the issue is in the punishment. I think the issue is in the upholding of the law, right? So it's not necessarily that it's the workaround that these people who are getting in trouble go through or get to avoid that penalty, rather than saying, you did this. For instance, if you every time you were caught speeding, right? Every time you were speeding and got pulled over, instead of getting a ticket, you lost your license for a month. Do we think that the cases of speeding would go up, go down, or stay equal, right? So if we apply that across the board to things, because people, we know as a society, $100, $180, like, yeah, it hurts the pocketbook, but I can deal with that. Like, my time's worth $180, the chance of getting a $180 ticket, right? But at the same time, speeding really isn't worth losing my privilege of driving for a whole month. So, like, I don't think necessarily, to disagree with you on the thing about drugs, I don't think it's necessarily that the laws are bad there. I think that because we've become, again, desensitized to it, they're not upholding the law or the penalties for breaking the law as much as they should be.
There's no study that I know of that says if we killed people quicker, the murder rate would go down. And again, I go back to the whole, shortly after an execution, the desensitization thing kicks in and homicide rates tend to go up.
To the issue of harsher sentences for lesser crimes, the example of giving people more suspended licenses doesn't really fit what we're talking about here. Because the problem that I see with the harsher sentences, like in prison sentences, let's say we have a crime that typical sentence would be 5 years, and we make it a mandatory 10-year sentence. Given the current state of the system, all we've done is given someone another 5 years to learn how to be a better criminal. Because that's what a lot of times what you're learning. The difficulty, and it's always been a debate, rehabilitation or incarceration to protect society. What I've seen in our involvement as a faith community, as a church with the prison and jail system, is the more we can get involved in cooperating with the prison system for actual rehabilitation, the better chance of non-recidivism. If all we're doing is saying we're going to lock you up for longer, for twice as long, you can talk to lots of people who've gone through the system, and what they'll tell you is, I just learned how to be better at being a criminal because I was around criminals all day long. And when I finally did get out, I didn't learn anything about how to be a productive member of society. So that's a whole other debate. So I don't think that just the harsher penalty is the issue when you're talking about other kinds of crimes.
I think also penalties don't necessarily deter crimes. In my opinion, if you focusing on society. When children go home and there's domestic abuse in the house, or there's problems at home, that has an impact on the child. When the child is not growing up in a healthy house, that child is going to go out in society and be impacted by what they saw at home. And if there is no, if we don't work as a society at the individual level from an early age, it's going to impact us when those people grow up. I don't think necessarily that harsher crime deters, a harsher punishment, deters crime.
I was gonna say after death penalty there isn't really anything harsher. So maybe your point it would be just if you kill somebody you are going to get it. And no matter what, there is no gray area. If that was the stance, then maybe I wouldn't go kill somebody. Maybe somebody wouldn't because they know for a fact that they're gonna get the death penalty.
That's exactly where I was going with that, was if I went out and in the process they determine whether they're mentally sane, whether they're not. So by the time the judgment comes, they've already exhausted or they've already looked at those, right? Then they go through the appeals processes, and if they're still losing those cases at the end, which I know part of the issue of the length of it is the process. But the idea of my question was really, if I go out and I take someone's life and I know for a fact that if I make this decision, it's going to cost me my life and not in 25 years, I think people would think twice. And if they're not, then they accept their punishment. It's the people who are working so to me it all comes down to personal responsibility, right? If I go out and I make a decision to take someone's life, at that time, I feel like I'm potentially forfeiting my right to live, or I'm putting myself in a position where someone may make the decision to take my own life. Would that be equal or not? That's in everyone's opinion. But on the other hand, if, it comes down to it, you're talking about the psychology of the people who are working in the jails. Well, if they're going to work in a jail and they decide to work in a jail, they choose that profession knowing that that's something that they may have to deal with, and they decide that they don't want to deal with that situation, they have the option of leaving and going somewhere else and doing something. So, is that really, of course it's an argument, you can argue anything, but if I take a job at McDonald's, but I'm like, I don't really want to flip burgers or fry fries, I should probably look at getting a different job, right? Because that's part of the description of the job.
What if you live in a town that really the only potential job is to work in the prison? Have you ever been to Stark? There is nothing there except 3 prisons. And so if you want to make a decent living, if you want to have a pension someday, if you want health insurance, you don't really have a lot of options in some of these small towns. And the same you find in Alabama and Arkansas. And, you want someone to quit their good job.
Does that go back to personal responsibility though? You don't want to stay in Stark and work in one of the jails and do these things, do well in school, chase the education. Before you are young and dumb and have a baby with someone and create a family that you're not ready to support, move on somewhere else and get a job at McDonald's in the city across town or whatever it is.
One of my mentors when I was a younger lawyer said to me, the hardest thing for a human being to do is to change. And it was a very wise thing, and I think of it when questions like what you raise come up, that it's very easy for you and I to say, well, you just move to a different town, well, you just get a different job. And maybe for people like you and I, that is an easy thing to do. But it's not an easy thing for everyone. And I think that we need to be a little less judgmental as a society, and as human beings, and as Christians, as a member of the Islamic faith that suggests we all could use a little more of.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we're out of time, but let me thank all the speakers for their time. So I want to invite Carson to thank our sponsors, and we're going to do the raffle, and also we're going to have food, so come on in.
Alright, I just want to be quick. Thank you to all the sponsors that helped get this event ready. We have Publix, we got Party City, Kelly Stonebreaker with Remax Realty, Chris Rachetti with Ashton Woods, Nelson Warner with iStar Travel Group, and Balancing Point Wellness Center. Really appreciate your contributions. Thank you for coming out. And also thanks to the speakers. Our class put together some gifts. We can go get those. And we're going to be giving those out to you guys, as well as a raffle with the tickets. We're going to be raffling away one of the gifts as well, and a t-shirt. Okay, so the raffle. Get those tickets out.
Thank you.
Raffle. For inside each of those is a gift certificate to Balancing Point Wellness Center. You get acupuncture and a spa.
Nice, thank you very much.
So the first ticket is going to be 5452562. Alright, so the second one is going to be 5452552. Oh yeah! We got a winner! Okay, so the next gift we're going to be wrapping off is a t-shirt. And the t-shirt's from our group. You outside, you decide, you should decide. So the United Peace, United Stand for Peace Initiative. It's going to be 5452569.
Hey, there's some injustice going on here.
I think you want right there.
Yeah!
We got it.
Alright, thank you guys.
Thank you very much. So with that, we thank you for coming. We actually have a banner right here if you guys want to sign it, just as a memory of your attendance. We also have a frame, picture frame outside related to the flyer. But please enjoy the food.